Welcome to Story Blend.
My horrifying experience when I broke into a home. Story by Reddit user primary_ad5414. Hillcrest Lane is a quiet place. The kind of suburban street where every house looks the same. Big lawns, 2-car garages, lights off by 10 p.m. You'd think a place like this would have advanced security cameras or alarms. But that's the thing about people in neighborhoods. Like this, they don't expect trouble. They assume danger stays far away in these parts of town. Lucky for guys like me, they're wrong. I was standing in the shadows, just outside the side gate of a house that I'd been watching for a couple of weeks. It belonged to a guy in his early 40s, lived alone and worked a boring 9-to-5 job. Every night he came home, parked his car in the driveway, and disappeared inside until morning. No guests, no family, just him. I waited just to be sure, glancing at my phone. Ilias 42 p.m., the lights had been off. For over an hour, perfect. The gate creaked softly as I pushed it open, slipping into the backyard. I'd chosen this house for a reason, no dog. Had an alarm system that I could easily defuse, and a sliding glass door with a lock I could easily pick. I put on my gloves and started working on the door, and within 2 minutes I was in. Inside, the house was dark and still. My eyes adjusted quickly as I took in the layout. Living room to the left, kitchen straight ahead, a staircase leading to the second floor. My heart raced, but it was the familiar thrill of the job, the rush of knowing I was in someone else's space, with their belongings at my fingertips. I made my way through the living room, careful to step lightly. No need to rush. I'd start upstairs, go through the bedroom, grab anything valuable, then be on my way out. Easy peasy. But as I reached the bottom of the stairs, something caught my attention. A door half open at the end of the hall. The smell hit me first. It was not rotten or bad, but smelled more like a strong disinfectant, like bleach or formaldehyde. I couldn't tell for sure, and it made me want to know more. I flicked on my flashlight and shone it down the narrow staircase. I realized it was a basement, but something was off. Way off. I descended the stairs slowly, the beam of my flashlight bouncing off the walls. At the bottom, the basement opened up into a larger room. But this wasn't the kind of basement people used for storage or laundry. The floor was smooth, polished concrete, the walls lined with thick soundproofing foam. A large metal table sat in the middle, surrounded by strange tools, scalpels, pliers, some other instruments I didn't recognize. And on the shelves lining the walls, glass jars, dozens and dozens of them neatly arranged, each one holding something small and twisted. I stepped closer, holding my breath as my flashlight revealed their contents. Locks of hair tied into little knots, floating in some kind of liquid. And not just hair, other things. Dew, fingernails, teeth, eyeballs. I stumbled back, my heart slamming in my chest. My hand knocked into something on the table, sending it clattering to the floor. It was a book. I bent down to pick it up, my hands trembling as I flipped it open. It was an album. The first photo was of a woman, mid-20s, smiling into the camera. The next page showed her again, but this time her smile was gone. Her eyes were wide, filled with terror, and her hands were bound behind her back. The third photo, she was dead. The life drained from her face, her skin pale, her mouth frozen in a final silent scream, and the same thing repeated over and over with each time. The victim being a different person. I slammed the album shut, bile rising in my throat. At that moment, I realized of all the houses I had at my disposal, I picked one that belonged to a serial killer, and then I heard something that made the hair at the back of my neck stand on end. A soft whimper, faint but unmistakable. I turned, sweeping the room with my flashlight, and froze. In the far corner, strapped to a metal chair, was a woman. Her wrists and ankles were bound and duct tape gagged her mouth. Her eyes, wide and terrified, locked onto mine. She was alive. I rushed to her, ripping the tape from her mouth. She gasped, trembling, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Please, help me," she rasped, her voice barely a whisper. "He's coming back." Ice filled my veins. I fumbled with the ropes binding her, my hands shaking so badly that they kept slipping. Her eyes darted toward the stairs, terror creeping into me, spreading like wildfire. We had seconds, maybe. Then we heard it. Not footsteps, but the quiet hum of a nearby TV screen flickering on. It showed grainy footage from cameras inside the house. Each room, each window. One by one, we watched as the windows sealed themselves, thick metal slabs sliding into place with a heavy finality. Doors slammed shut and locked, as if triggered by some automated system. Slam, slam, slam. Everything was locking down, as if a failsafe had been activated. We were trapped. Panic clawed at my throat. I spun around, my flashlight flickering just as the sound of footsteps echoed from the stairs. No, 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 I whispered, backing away. Then he appeared. The man who clicked those dreadful photos. The homeowner. He stood at the foot of the stairs, calm as death, with a look of twisted amusement. His eyes flicked between me and the woman, as if deciding who to kill first. In his hand, he held a long, gleaming knife. "You're not supposed to be here," he said, his voice low and almost disappointed. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but there was nowhere to go. Nowhere to hide. If I had any chance of escape, I'd have to get past him first, and even then, the whole place was sealed shut. He started down the stairs, slow, savoring every moment. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a metal rod, and held it in front of me. Desperate. My heart pounded so loudly it drowned out everything else. "Stay back!" I shouted, but my voice wavered, unconvincing. He smiled, a slow, deliberate grin that sent chills down my spine. "You don't understand," he said, voice calm, almost playful. "This is my home. You're the intruder." Before I could react, he lunged at me. I swung the rod with everything I had, but he was too fast. His knife slashed across my arm, sending a searing jolt of pain through me. Blood poured from the wound, staining the floor, and I fought to stay on my feet as dizziness washed over me. At that moment, I realized I wasn't getting out of here alive. Not in this basement. Not against him. He lunged again, knocking the rod from my hands. It clattered uselessly to the floor as I fell back, crashing hard. The air rushed out of my lungs as he pinned me down with his foot, pressing against my chest. The knife glinted in the dim light, raised slowly, aimed at my throat. This was it. Time slowed as I braced for the end, watching the blade descend. But then she appeared out of nowhere. The woman I'd freed, bloodied and trembling, but alive. She swung the rod I'd dropped with all her strength, a raw, primal scream ripping from her throat as the heavy metal connected with the back of the killer's skull. The crack echoed through the basement. His body crumpled on top of me, unconscious, his knife clattering to the floor. I shoved him off, gasping for air, my chest heaving. Together, we bound him to the metal chair, making sure he couldn't move. His head lolled to the side, blood dripping from the gash in his skull. He was out cold, but we didn't take any chances. The house was still locked down. But the woman, her name was Sarah, knew how to disable the security system. She'd been watching him, learning. Within minutes, the doors clicked open. We didn't waste a second. We ran, through the basement, up into the house, and out into the night. Cold air finally hit my face like a slap. And for the first time since stepping into that nightmare, I felt like I could breathe again. My arm throbbed, but I didn't care. We reached the street, and Sarah, with trembling hands, started calling the cops with the phone she had retrieved from the killer's pocket while tying him up, simply collapsed onto the curb, staring up at the night sky. Rain falling in soft droplets. I was alive. I had come so close, too close. But I made it. As the distant wail of sirens grew louder, I closed my eyes, whispering a silent thank you to God, and quietly slipped out of there before the cops arrived. I'd been reckless, greedy. I'd walked into the wrong place thinking it would be easy. But I survived. After that night, I never developed the urge to rob again.
Like the story. Like, comment, and share it for new videos.